Hello, and thank you for joining today's Family Office Network's webinar series featuring innovative medicine partners. Presenting for us today is Peter Faulkner, Chief Managing Director. Peter has spent over 30 years in translational science, bringing medical surgical concepts from mere thoughts of how to safely solve a problem to completion into the world of medicine. His background and commitment to creating safe, effective, and efficient outcomes has allowed him to enjoy a very successful career in the collaborative medical world of innovation. At the end of today's presentation, we will have time for Q&A. Please use your questions chat option on your screen to send over any questions you have so we can answer them accordingly. Without further ado, Peter, I will let you take it from here.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, everybody, for being on today, and on behalf of Innovative Medicine Partners and all of our team members across the country. We're happy to present to you about innovation throughout the space of infertility. As Lindsay stated, I've been in this arena for 30 plus years. Our team has over combined experience of over 200 years of combined experience in innovation. We have some collaborative experts that have joined us with this particular innovation in the area of infertility. Dr. Andy Toledo's group, one of the largest infertility groups in the southeastern United States. They've been on CNN, NBC, etc. For groundbreaking research that they have also done and joined us with in the area of infertility. Infertility is primarily defined for the inability to conceive after a year, and believe it or not, it affects 186 million couples worldwide. One of the reasons that we became acutely aware of this is my wife and I found this dead center in the middle of those 186 million about 6 years ago, even after 4 children. Infertility treatments are pretty standard and have been standard for many decades. HSG, or now ultrasound procedures used to open or examine the fallopian tubes to make sure there's no mucus blockage or kinks in the tubes. Ovarian stimulation prescribed by the OBGYNs. Intrauterine inseminations have been around for, is one of the oldest procedures and still being used today. On the side of the specialist, I'm sure you're well aware and hear the news even as of today, IVF and ICSI. I think the oldest frozen embryo of 27 years was birthed just a few days ago, and it hit the NBC News today. The problems with the current treatments. Why are there problems? Well, many of the problems really are associated with the majority of the patients not served by the very expensive side of the world where IVF and ICSI is done, but it primarily sits with the 44,000 OBGYNs in the United States, and you can extrapolate that out across the world. But the majority of the patients that cannot afford to get over to that other side, some of the treatments that have been available to the OBGYNs are very old and have a lot of issues resolving around them. The HSG, as I described before, to open the fallopian tubes is a very painful experience for a female to go through because of where they actually place the catheter and the balloon inside the uterus. And unfortunately, on top of that, the way the product has been designed, the radiologist doing the procedure alongside the OBGYN unfortunately gets his head put right in the beam of the radiation, and they're not real happy about that. But you're talking about decades old procedure and devices that have created that problem. Endometrial abrasion for increased implantation of the fertilized embryo. Another area that has been ignored for a number of years and has recently gained some traction. Myself, as a translational scientists recognized that this was an opportunity for humans because we saw it in animals years and years ago. But what currently exists for humans today is catheters that are not cleared, the devices to be utilized in this procedure. They're very dangerous because of the nature of how they're made. They're not made for this procedure, and there's no standardized way to safely perform a very critical procedure. So another area of problem. Prediction of ovulations. The OBGYNs have done an excellent job of understanding timing of ovulation, and they have come up with some very good solutions to that. Sperm separation. This has been an enormous problem for 40 plus years. The standard of care, we take the sperm, then we wash it, we put it in a centrifuge, we spin it thousands of RPMs that damage the DNA in the sperm. So a real problem area. Intrauterine insemination, the oldest and largest procedure done even as of today, utilizes a catheter, a standard IUI catheter, which does not prevent sperm reflux back into the upper vaginal space. Death occurs to that sperm within seconds, and it has been ignored, and a great procedure, but been ignored and completely needs to be redone. A lot of problem areas.
I am Carla Faulkner, founder and chief operating officer of Innovative Medicine Partners. Innovative Medicine Partners is committed to women's health, taking great care in serving the majority of women who struggled for years in this area with little hope. We are here to serve the majority versus the tiny minority who can afford the extremely expensive specialists and treatments. After 5 years of research and development, Innovative Medicine Partners has developed procedures, methods, and devices that will disrupt the current infertility marketplace. Innovative Medicine Partners is committed as well in the development of procedures and devices that minimize the trauma and discomfort of a female based on their unique anatomy. Innovative Medicine Partners is committed to new effective procedures and methods versus the historical multi-decade-old procedures that bear poor results.
Our commitment's long-standing. Our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Deneen Plesla, looked back into the studies to look and see the call for this particular type of action that we took 5 years ago, and she found it literally scattered throughout the published articles, begging someone to do this type of work. Dr. Kirby Plesla, my partner, who's an OBGYN of 30 plus years, and I embarked on this research with Dr. Deneen Plesla about 5 years ago. And due to our own situation and also due to the calling from the research that's been published. The IUI procedure, as I stated before, is the oldest and the most utilized procedure out there. The biggest issue, as I stated before, is sperm reflux. And what I mean by that is you take a standard IUI catheter and it's actually placed inside the cervix into the uterus. And once you inseminate the patient and start to pull the catheter out, the uterus squeezes, and as it squeezes, it flushes the sperm back out through the cervix into the upper vaginal space, and it's rendered dead within seconds. And if you look back in the literature, the success rates have been between 6 and 22%. The most recent literature in 2019 states it's around 8%. There's really not a reason why we haven't addressed this. We're all of us that are in the R&D side of the world, especially myself coming from a major area of OBGYN surgery, we've all looked at ourselves a little ashamed and said, why haven't we talked about this or studied it until now? Well, 5 years ago, we made the decision across the country to collaborate with experts and ourselves and solve this long-standing problem. When Dr. Plesla and I examined the procedure up close and personal myself, I saw the problem occur even with my wife over and over again. You get ready, you do everything, both the male and the female, to get ready for that cycle, do the insemination, and then you almost watch it. You really literally watch it come right back at you. So we understood that we needed to create a plug, so to speak, that would plug the cervix at the same time you administered the IUI catheter. So we invented this product called SimSecure. That's a silicone-based product made out of the same silicone that the FDA cleared for breast implants for 10 years. This product only stays in the body 30 to 45 minutes and then it's out. But you simply place the catheter inside our product, SimSecure, place it into the cervix, advance the catheter into the uterus, do the insemination, and then once you're done, you pull the catheter out, and it's left there with a suture that's attached to it to stay nicely in that area while the uterus is squeezing and trying to get it out. It will eventually, the uterus will calm down over minutes, and the semen is able then to make its way into the creps of the tissue, and then it's very simple for the doctor to come back 15, 30 minutes, whatever he deems appropriate, and simply pull it out from the vaginal space and away the patient is able to go. We have had remarkable results from this, stopping the reflux, which, you go through all of this to put the semen in there. The last thing you want it to do is be evacuated from that space. So if you look at the picture, you'll see the old technology that has been used for 40 years, made by a major company that manufactures IUI catheters, and this really incredible that this thing stayed on the marketplace 40 years. It's a plastic bag with a sponge in it with a string tied to it. And so the idea has been to date to take this catheter, as we stated, place it in, pull it out, and then grab the sponge in the bag and shove it in there close to the space, to the cervix, and hope that it allows the semen to get back inside the cervix in a fast manner. But as you can see, based on the studies over the past 40 years, it did not do its job. So Dr. Plessel and I felt the strong need to solve that problem. The FDA asked us to do a safety trial on 46 patients, which we did. On all 46 patients, we've done many more patients since then, but this is what the FDA asked us to do. We had no perceivable evidence of gross reflux in the space, and even more important, we had no discomfort or vaginal injury at all from placing our product. And I'll make a real critical point here. These IUI catheters have been made for decades as well. The cervix is not a nice little straight tube. It has undulations in it. It sits at multiple angles, developed, as Carla stated early, based on the female's anatomy. They're not all the same, but the catheters are all the same. And to navigate that cervix is traumatic. It's traumatic to the patient, to the tissue, etc., and it creates discomfort during that procedure. When you apply SimSecure to that space, it actually acts as a guide, and it's such a soft material. Then we have patient testimonials that are on the site that you can go in and look, and they state that they did not even know that the insemination had happened. They had no idea the product was in or when it came out. And they compare that directly to multiple procedures that they've had before with just an IUI catheter and the sponge, or just the IUI catheter. So we're real excited, as well as the patients are, that we can stop this reflux issue and then move on to the next problems that we identified earlier in the presentation. Second problem that we found led us to the second problem we wanted to attack, which happened to be a very large problem that crosses over many areas. It's called implantation failure. So let's say that you got everything working correctly, and the embryo is fertilized, ready, and is in the uterus, ready to attach itself to the uterine wall. The literature states very clearly that 2/3 of the failed fertility procedures, it doesn't matter whether it's IUI, IVF, ICSI, or even natural occurrence of pregnancy, 2/3 of these fail due to implantation issues. We were about 2 years into the work on SimSecure and SimSupport, and once we had finished that, we decided just to pause and study for the next 2 years. In fact, Dr. Deneen Plessel published a book on this area about endometrial receptivity and could we affect it. We were very fortunate that the timing was just right. We were seeing that some of the specialists were very concerned that they were, patients are spending $15, $20, $30, $40,000, and they were putting these fertilized embryos in the uterus and they couldn't get them to implant. And so they went in to do some biopsies of the tissue to see what was wrong. And lo and behold, they found out on the next cycle that after the first one failed, or the second go around, that the actual fertilized embryo implanted exactly where they did the biopsy. And so this led us back to the literature on animals, and it also led us to the understanding of how to create an environment within the uterus to actually chemo attract that fertilized embryo to a particular spot and allow it to implant at a very high success rate. We developed the very first line of instrumentation to do a very safe, precise endometrial abrasion, which has never been done or FDA cleared. It's called AccuBraid. We have a non-visual instrument, and then we have a full line of visual instruments that allow the OBGYN to watch himself go through the cervix up to the fundus of the uterus, make a 1 centimeter abrasion to the uterus and the fundus, and then watch himself come back out safely. The reason it's so important, if you'll flip to the next slide, is because we actually do this endometrial abrasion, as you can see on the chart here, between day 7 and 10 of a female cycle. And if you look with a hysteroscope, which we have done many times at the uterus between day 7 and 10, the tissue looks like cotton candy hanging off. And so it's extremely delicate. And the procedure, as we stated below, is being done now with curettes that are very hard and harsh that cause, you can actually perforate the uterus with biopsy devices that are not designed, that are stainless steel, that are again very harsh and not safe. So our entire intent was to design an instrument that could navigate through the cervix without pain, make its way to the fundus, do a very precise abrasion of very delicate tissue, and then safely come out. If you do that appropriately, then your IUI is set up to be done during ovulation between day 14 and 16, which the OBGYNs thoroughly understand how to navigate that area and understand when to actually do the IUI after they've done the abrasion. And that sets you up totally correct for the next phase, which is the phase of implantation. Again, we wrote an entire book on the mechanism of action because, you just can't go out there and say, oh, we just make this little delicate swipe of the tissue and all of a sudden magically this occurs. Well, scientists want to know what exactly happens. What is the mechanism of action that happens in order to have that successful implantation? We're happy to provide, and I think we have provided to the network our book on this, but this is a graphic that shows you the different things that occur as the cascade in order to make that event successful. The other issue, we go back to the HSG. The HSG is typically done during the assessment phase. There are many patients that actually come to you that have had multiple miscarriages, etc. And you know that their issue is not necessarily can they get pregnant, but they can't hold that pregnancy. HSGs are used to open the tubes to make sure that they're patent. Sometimes you'll find a mucus block or a little kink, etc. And the literature shows by doing this successfully that you increase the pregnancy rates. That the problem is, again, the instrumentation, as you can see it in the graphic here, is antiquated. We deliver a catheter into the uterus, and we blow a balloon up, as you can see in the uterus, and then we pull that balloon back taut up against what's called the internal cervical os, which, if you understand female anatomy, all the nerve endings are located on this interior section of that os. When you do that and pull that balloon back taut against it, I literally watch my wife go off the table. That happens every single time. It's extremely painful. The radiologist is fighting that balloon because he's got to occlude that cervix in order to push the dye in. He's got to push to open that uterus up, fill it with volume, and then fill enough pressure to push it out those tubes. So when we designed AccuBraid, we also designed it with high flow tip that allows you to not have a balloon in that space, but simply we have our other plug, which is designed like SimSecure, but larger, that fits in the cervical space, which does not create pain for a female. So we alleviated the tissue injury and the extreme discomfort to the patient. And the way our product is designed, it allows that radiologist or that physician to move his body out of the beam of the radiation beam and to be safe for himself. So we solved two major problems, and it makes the procedure go much faster. So not only has this company filed international patents and have actually been granted patents, but we filed a method patent by which how to do this new methodology in order to take an old procedure, an old antiquated procedure that is still the highest used procedure in the world, and bring it up to standards which would have much higher success rate. The HSG, endometrial abrasion, the OBGYNs do a very good job on ultrasounding and understanding ovulation. Sperm separation, we haven't talked about it, but it has been a problem. The sperm separation problem, thank goodness, at the same time we were examining the IUI, the SimSecure, SimSupport, AccuBraid, etc. There was a group out of Harvard that was looking at why we were continuing to spin sperm down and damage the DNA. Long story short, they invented a product called Zymote that filters the sperm without ever damaging the DNA. So in our method patent, we have included that product in order to complete the circle and solve the entire problem associated with the procedure itself. Impacting pregnancy rates. At the end of the day, what do we see? We see that the sperm separation device actually by itself, not inside this circle of events, but by itself increases pregnancy rates. Endometrial abrasion, even with the off-label uses and the problems that they fortunately haven't been doing it very long, but have been doing it since 2017. They double the rate of implantation. We already know that our safe way of doing it is going to drive it even higher. HSG, that procedure also is documented in the literature to increase pregnancy rates. Now we'll be doing it much safer and less painful. We know that by holding that semen in the uterus where it belongs with SimSecure, will also attribute to the circle. And so we should see major shifts between that 8%, and like we saw in animals, we saw it go all the way up to 70% take rate. So we're looking forward to holistically doing this as a methodology, since we own the method patent as well as the patents on the procedures.
So this is where it gets.
I'm going to let Benjamin take over and walk through the financial side of the world.
Yeah, so this is where it gets exciting. The market is pretty sizable across all of these different devices. It makes up over a $3.6 billion annual market size. And the number of procedures, which you can see at the top that break out IVF, ICSI, IUI, HSG, those are historical numbers that we pulled that are documented in-office procedures. Something else to note is currently this market is a cash business, meaning you don't get reimbursed outside of HSG for these. You're paying out of pocket, the patients are. So a lot of large companies like to see that because it de-risks these devices from a cash perspective. So certainly a large annual market, and this market is growing every year due to all of the environmental issues that are impacting infertility here. So our commercial strategy is to get these devices cleared and to work with some of the global manufacturers like your Johnson & Johnson, Cooper Surgical, to actually get these products acquired. In terms of the actual funding, what we're looking for to get these devices, all four of these unique devices cleared, is $4.1 million. The purpose of those funds go to the remaining R&D, engineering, manufacturing, some of the post-market trials and FDA testing, filing, so on and so forth there. In terms of the journey, we've raised almost $4 million over the last 5 years or so to get us to the point where we're at today. So as you can see, everything in orange is what we've actually completed across these devices, and the remaining, which is shown in black, are the steps that we have to get through in order to sell this off to a global manufacturer. We anticipate that date being somewhere around Q1 of 2022, so not too far down. We're really at the 10-yard line, looking at the goal posts here. Turn it back over to you, Peter.
Our patents, as I stated before, we're very fortunate. We filed international patents coming right out of the block years ago when we started this. We have moved beyond the patent pending status. We now have design patents that are issued. We now have utility patents that are issued and filed in 19 jurisdictions around the world on SimSecure. We have a very large portfolio of patents. This happens to be the very first one and the broadest patent that we filed. So we're very excited. I can't tell you how many instruments that I see on the shelf that we use every day in the operating room that still say patent pending after years and years and years. But we are pre-market, and we are already issued with a very, very broad patents. As you move on to our other devices, AccuBraid, we filed international patents. We have heard back from them. We have our very first product, looks like it's going to be issued within the next few weeks. And then we have extremely positive international searches that are back, and we are filing accordingly. So very good news on the patent side across all of our products. Our FDA, we have the largest regulatory department in the country, consulting group called Experian Group, that works with all of our projects from day one until completion and sold off. They have a 100% clearance rate with the FDA over the past 20 years on Class 2 devices. All of our devices, except for one, is a Class 2. The only exemption to that is our very first AccuBraid instrument. happens to be a class 1, which is even faster through the FDA. But your typical class 2s, as stated here, about we're on the time frame we're at right now, 6 to 9 months for clearance. Typically, the submission itself, once submitted, is 180 days through the FDA. We're also very fortunate that we have what the FDA calls subsequently equivalent devices that are predicates to our device. And I can tell you, our meetings with the FDA, they are thrilled to see us make such strides on the safety side for females. We have full regulatory assessments available on in the portal for you guys on exactly where we stand, in-depth documents for SimSecure and its components, as well as AccuBraid, HSG, and ultrasound. Companies of interest, quite a variety. And we are very surprised that in the past month, after we did our first FON network presentation, we've had 2 major companies come to us. I will keep it private at this point in time, but we have dealt with them in the past, but they have come to the table from the highest level presidents, chairmen of the chiefs of their innovation departments, merger and acquisition people, etc. So we're seeing some very early interest in knowing how close we are to ready for market. We appreciate it. Everybody on our team across the country appreciates this opportunity. I would ask you, if you do one thing only, to please look at our videos, our patient videos. If this doesn't and hasn't already intrigued you, I promise you that when you hear from patients directly that have struggled in this area for many years, and Dr. Plus and I have been able to provide them with, now they're holding these wonderful children, you'll be further intrigued about what we've been doing in our mission and commitment to this marketplace. We're open to any question.
Yeah. Hey, Lindsay, I think we're open to questions here.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Peter. Again, to all of our attendees, using your questions chat option on your screen, you can send over those questions so we can ask Peter and Benjamin. Gentlemen, I'm just going to jump right in. Question 1, how strong is your IP for these devices?
Lindsay, as I stated, we've moved, what the major product has moved as of last week and this Monday from a patent pending standpoint to a patent issued, which is an enormous hurdle. People, again, sometimes struggle for 10 years to get to that level, and here we are 4.5 in, and we're now issued. And again, to state it even better, they are the broadest patents that we filed, not the, we have subsequent patents that are very narrow, talking about very intricate things that are out there that we filed later. But you're always hoping you're going to get that first big one that's the broadest, because that's what protects you out in the marketplace. So we're real excited that that happened to us. The United States granted it on Monday.
Fantastic, thank you. Next question. Sounds like the $100 kit cost replaces the cost of the existing catheter and sponge. How much does that existing supply cost per procedure?
Okay, so the sponge is around, it varies depending upon, area of the country, et cetera, but it's real close to the cost of the SimSecure, believe it or not. I mean, again, this thing is so old. It was before the FDA started regulating products, and it's still being sold today, hundreds of millions.
Perfect, thank you. Next question, have you had any interest from global manufacturers?
Yes, we have already had two very large meetings with two major globals in the past 60 days. One about 2 weeks ago that came to us. We did not go to them. And to say that that's encouraging is incredible because they don't come calling at that high of a level unless they have some interest. And to go back to my background, we didn't say this, but I'll tell you everybody just to give you an understanding. I was on the very first team that did the very first lap chole in the United States in 1988, and we changed the world of surgery from open surgery to closed surgery. And we developed hundreds of products in order to actually do those procedures. So our group is very familiar with the J&Js of the world, et cetera. We have pioneered for these large companies, the Cooks, the Coopers, you name it, across the country for a number of years. They look to us to pioneer new things in the world of general surgery, OBGYN, cardiac, thoracic, et cetera. And so early in our careers, we were the pioneers behind the LAVH, which was the laparoscopically assisted vaginal hysterectomy. We pioneered that operation. We pioneered lap choles. We pioneered many others. So we do have strong relationship with industry, and industry respects us because of what we've done. We're in the history books, and so they know what they're dealing with when they deal with us, and we don't cut any corners, and we do it the right way. We hire the absolute best specialist out there to work with our team. As you see with Experian Group, we have an incredible non-member team IP group in New Orleans, and scattered all over the country, different specialists, engineers, manufacturing in California, et cetera. So we have kept it quiet intentionally until we got close here. And again, as Benjamin said, we're close to that 10-yard line. And so now it's kind of the time to wake them up a little bit and say, hey, we're running on in. We're looking for this final funding, and when we get to the final funding, we'll be ready to talk. And so some of them have already come to the table and said, okay, let's start the talks. So very encouraging. Thanks.
Perfect, thank you. So with that said, how much funds have you raised to date?
Like Benjamin said, we raised about 3.8 million over the past since early 2015-16, and it's gotten us, which is unheard of. If you actually look it up on published articles, they tell you real clearly that it takes a class 2 medical device between $3 to $5 million each to get through FDA clearance with no clinical trial. So think about it. We have 4 major products, and at the end of the day, if we get this last funding, we will have spent close to $8 million for 4 with FDA clearances. It's unheard of low. We're way below the market, but I'm going to attribute that to the team. If you go on our website and you look at the depth of our team and what we've done and who I have to pat everybody's back. Everybody's a specialist in their area. We combine each of us 20, 30, 40 years of experience to do this type of project. And that's why we're able, it's not costing $20 million, which is what it should cost. It's going to end up costing around 8, which is unheard of.
Fantastic, thank you. So far, that does seem to be all the questions that have pulled through. So gentlemen, if there's anything else that you would like to add, now's the time.
We want to thank everybody. Thanks for your interest. We hope that the area of women's health, we have many other things to come, and we hope it's of high interest to you, because it definitely is to us, because we see these patients every single day, and seeing the smile on their face and tears run down their eyes when we make a difference is what it's all about. Thank you all.
Perfect. Thank you so much. To everyone that joined us today, thank you, yes, for joining us. I will be following up with everyone individually to see if there's any other questions that you have for the team, and I'll get you in direct contact with either Peter or Benjamin. So gentlemen, again, thanks for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.